But in the midst of it all, there was also rainfall. Rainfall
to water down
rainfall and
aggression.
Flooding. Heavy flooding. All over the city and beyond. Heavy flooding. There's a promise of more rains still. A prediction. Meteorological and NADMO are predicting more rains. Where were you when the rains?
I was actually going to pick my kids from school at Mary Mother, and I thought, I didn't really see this coming because it was heavy for some few minutes, but I didn't see floods coming. You know, I thought it was going to be one of those.
I thought it was about 2 or 3 hours of rain.
Right, but I was indoor. I was actually working when I came out, so seeing the heavy side of it was about just a few minutes for me, just about 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And I got to the school, and it was actually what really causes the floods in Accra is when it rains constantly. I've noticed that thing actually. Whether it's a drizzle or it's actually heavy. I mean, when it rains constantly for hours, then I expect that there's a problem. But this one, forgive me, but I didn't see it coming.
Okay, there's a story here. NADMO warns of more heavy rains after Accra floods. And the story is on citinewsroom.com. Kindly go over there to read the story. It says here, the National Disaster Management Organization has cautioned the public against forecasted heavy rains. This follows the inundation of parts of Accra on Friday after almost an hour of rainfall. Now, according to the Public Relations Officer of NADMO, George A.C., the Ghana Meteorological Agency, which the organization was in constant talks with, had indicated that there will be more rains. As such, speaking on an interview on Eyewitness News on Citi FM in Accra, he said it was imperative for the public to brace up for more rains in the coming days. All right, so that's the story there. Now, I'll go on further, jump the quote that it's quoted there, and says here, meanwhile, in parts of Accra, again, saw large swamps of running water on roads following almost an hour of downpour on Friday. Areas like the Tema Motorway, Kwame Nkrumah Interchange, Kaneshie, North Kaneshie, Alajo, Adabraka, Accra Central, Tema Station, Accra, and Osu and others were heavily affected after close to an hour of rainfall. The water left many houses and cars submerged, and the drains carrying running water were overflown, while some potholes on the roads were enlarged and deepened. Okay, so that's the story.
There's this also aside from the encroachments that people have encroached, waterways and also water bodyways. These wetlands actually are supposed to soak the water.
Yes.
God created his whole thing, and human beings are trying to be smarter than God. So you go to the wetlands, the buffers where the water used to end up, you've built there. And so what would you expect? I wouldn't go too much into it. I mean, the abandoned projects do have some diverging points where, there's been some blockades just to make way for the project. And if the project is abandoned this period, you should have made some ways for it. Look at the one around Obechebi Lamte areas. Once you've compressed the water, it will find its way, and it will just go and compound in one area, and then you have the reactions. But it is important to note that, look, it is our human activities also contribute to this, but natural ways. I mean, this is the time to discuss the climate change issues that we always talk about. People are hurting the environment. You are diverting waterways and everything else. Is your human practice, but then your activities also affect the rain pattern. And so we should just be expecting more. As it is water, I'm a water campaigner. So when water is coming, I love water. Let's find a way. In another country, this water, these volumes, will be diverted into reservoirs and used on farms. But in my country, when the blessings come, it becomes rather misfortunes. And so we should look at it.
Mr. Thompson, more rain is coming. The major parts of the city, especially, were flooded over the weekend. I don't know what your experience has been.
Yes, I was in the Volta region over the weekend. I was at the 20th anniversary celebration of the Agbogbomefia Togbi Apede the 14th, who organized an anti-corruption lecture, which was headlined by the former Auditor General Daniel Yaudemolovo, and the former Ambassador Nyahu Tamaklo, and then myself as speakers. And so I spent a huge part of the weekend in Volta region. And during that conversation, I think the Abu Bomefia made a comment that was very profound, that the politicians we have today have inherited our colonial masters. They've taken over from colonial masters in aggressive chase of our resources. From Volta, I went to Ada. I was supposed to come to Accra, and I heard that I started seeing images on social media that the entire motorway was flooded.
Water.
So I had to stay in Ada. In fact, I actually returned to Accra just yesterday. It goes a long way to tell you how unserious we are as a country. Ghana Meteorological Agency is warning us that there's going to be more rains. Is it something new? Don't we know that every year in Ghana we have two seasons, the rainy season and the dry season, and every year the rains are going to come? So, what preparation did we put in place for the rainy seasons? Were we not in this country when Cecilia Dapa came to tell us that she desilted the Odo River with $48 million? $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, 48. How are we still having floods in Accra? If we've spent $48 million solving a problem.
But she desilted only one channel. That's the Odo.
And that,
there are other channels.
So the Odo River swallowed $48 million. If you give me $48 million, I will give you 10 Odo rivers. It can create 10 other Odo rivers. Even hundreds of them. And the government is telling us that they've spent $48 million. But don't worry, we've spent $48 million, but brace yourself. More rains, your house are going to be flooded. Everything is going, your roads are going to be cut off. You can't go home. But don't worry, it's fine. Your $48 million is gone. And you don't want people to demonstrate against this reckless and incompetent behavior?
Now, some people don't like the demonstration, but I mean, for me, I think.
And you don't want people to demonstrate?
It's in the right direction.
See, this government has lost every moral right and legitimacy to govern. Common floods, build drainage systems, stop people from building on waterways, enforce the regulatory laws. How difficult can somebody be? Why don't they use the same machoism they used to stop people from demonstrating to stop the floods? The same machoism that they demonstrate with that brute force and anger and show of power. Why don't they transfer all that to solve the problems we have in this country? What did they show us for at least? Don't worry. We can't give you jobs. We can reduce prices of fuel. We can solve all the problems, but at least we will give you some dignity as a Ghanaian and ensure that when the rains come, if nothing at all, the rain do not inconvenience your life. How difficult is this? So much to ask for from a government which you've given so much resources, who has borrowed over 600 billion Ghana cedis, collected taxes in excess of 800 billion Ghana cedis. Oil revenue alone has given you about 200 billion. How difficult is it to ask for this basic. This is a dignity. When I saw some of the images on social media over the weekend,
the flooding images.
The flooding images, yeah. I was just sad. Drainages are carrying innocent children away, killing them. And our leaders are sitting down as if, they just don't care. They just don't care. And our people should keep dying. Our homes should be flooded. We should lose lives, properties every year. We'll come back. When, June 3rd happened, we sat in this country and sang a song, never again, never again. Yeah. How many people have died from water and drainage problems since then? So, and we sit in the country and we don't demand accountability. We don't demand anything. When you talk, people say, the problems is there, is the problems in the constitution, and so change the constitution, and then is a problem with democracy, and so you need you need a change of constitution to solve flood problems. You need change of constitution. So rains are taking people away because our constitution are giving so much powers to the president. That is the solution. When President Kufuor and all those presidents have come and go, wasn't it the same constitutions that they were using?
Yeah.
So how come the problems and the challenges in our governance we are having today did not exist then? It's a Kufuor the only president under the fourth Republican dispensation. You see?
Do you know there's a story I saw online just now as we were talking that it says here, the Member of Parliament for Assin North, Kennedy Jabon, has alleged that the construction firm Engineers and Planners owned by the president's brother, this was in 2015, published in 2015, was paid $200 million to dredge the Odo River. This is an allegation. I don't know if it was ever substantiated.
No, those were lies, please.
But I'm just saying that the problems that existed...
I'm not talking about problems of flood. I'm not talking about problems of flood.
Okay, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about the problems of the weakness in our constitution, because a lot of the situation, people are saying that most of the challenges, our leaders are failing us because of our constitution, the inefficiency of our constitution. Of course, I admit that there are some fundamental flaws with our constitution. Of course, certain provisions have outlived their usefulness. Of course, some laws need to be amended. Certain powers need to be taken away. But the point I'm making is that those things do not take precedent over political accountability. President Kufuor made a promise to we Ghanaians that vote for me. When I come into power, I will protect the public purse. He said that time the public purse was leaking, and that he's going to protect the public purse. He comes into government and the public purse gets missing. And we find out that he is the one who has actually stolen the purse. The same person who promised us he was going to protect the purse. And you say that, it is because our constitution is weak and all that problems and that today people's homes are being flooded, people are losing their lives and properties. And you say we can't hold them accountable because our constitution is weak.
Wrap it up for me.
So, our leaders are failing us. We are not happy with the current state of the country. Our democracy is under threat. And we need to speak up. Some of us have been speaking since 2017. We saw the signs right from the beginning that the trajectory this government was going, we were always going to end up in a ditch. But now more than ever, we need more people to speak up. And you journalists.
But 2017, I mean, the records show that until COVID hit, we were on an upward trajectory. In terms of the economy.
My brother, which records?
Is that not the case?
Which record? IMF have told. In fact, I was.
Are you saying that was not the case?
I was at a meeting with the country director of the World Bank.
Okay.
Who said the economy was gone way before COVID.
Way before COVID.
Because even before COVID, your debt levels were at a sustainable level. We started getting warnings from 2019.
Yeah. Okay.
Borrowing recklessly, and we don't know, as we speak, Look at the monies this government has borrowed, and still Accra is being flooded.
Okay,
you made us a promise that you're going to make Accra the cleanest city in West Africa. We vote for you, and now Accra is always submerged underwater.
Thank you very much.
Why,
thank you,
Mr. President?
All right.
Why?
Kapute,
Yes.
you have the last bite.
I think on the issue of the demonstrations, I think nobody should try to submerge the rights of the people to protest and demonstrate. You know, either to
we're done with the protest, though. We have finished the protest.
So, no, I'm just concluding and all that. And also on the issue of the flooding, like my brother mentioned, it's actually pathetic to hear that, you know, amounts such as $48 million will be quoted. Even if it's $40 million, you will go another day to sit around and make a value for money, you know, and see whether the things that they said they would do were done, and then whether it was actually at that cost. That's valuing and looking at the cost. But if you have pumped, his worry, which I also support, is if you have pumped in such amounts to dredge and make sure you have the river flow freely and then have its own state recovered, and still you are experiencing a high thing, you know, so then that it becomes very worrying, especially when the taxpayers' money has been utilized. So I think moving forward, these discussions we've had this morning, they are national discussions.
Yeah.
These are things that concern everybody. You'll be using the roads where around the Odo, and then there's a flood, and you'll be trapped in there. You know, you have to wait for hours. You know, it can also make it.
Yeah, you're lucky if your car doesn't get swept away.
You know, and even if you have depot. I remember when one such happened, and then the whole of Rana Motors got flooded.
Yes.
I remember some years ago. You know, so let's all keep these things at the back of our heads that these are national issues. It could affect you. Kolebu is in the enclave, you know, so you might be rushing a colleague, a friend, or a family member, and you meet this flood. So we should all be concerned. Ensure that, look, the monies that we paid for these works to be done, were they used properly? Because the next thing we'll be hearing is, because of ABC happenings, would need to take some of the public funds to go and do that. And while you are doing that, there will be people's displeasure.
Yeah.
When it builds in, they will want to come out and vent. So manage their protests very well.
All right.
But ensure that, look, whatever you are doing today, no, you are setting a precedence for tomorrow. I want to call again on all those bodies that we set up, that, look, Peace Council, we've set up the Council of State, all these bodies are there to advise. These are the times that we expect them to speak, you know, and address these issues. But for the police, I'm telling them, look, they have the same concerns that the people have. Ironically, I'll leave you with one thing that I was on my mind. Where the Greater Accra Regional Command, where they took the protesters, over there, the quarters over there that the police live in, when you are going anywhere to Turu, watch the conditions of the windows and the the housing
it's
system.
terrible.
No, you just watch it and see who the protesters were fighting for. That's the word I'll leave. If it did,
all right.
you see it as not pleasant.
Yeah.
I mean, the size is another thing. The state in which it is another thing.
Yeah.
And if you see all that, and persons were protesting that we need to have a better system. Now you look at who was fighting the protesters, and you ask yourself, who were they fighting for, and why are these two groups not agreeing?
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on the show this morning. Was joined by Jeffrey Kapute-Okansi. He's the Executive Director for Revenue Mobilization Africa, as well as Mensa Thompson, Executive Director for Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Thank you very much.